If you have nothing at all, you have kindness, you have sensitivity, you have respect that you can extend to your children.
Welcome to Sports Mom Rapport, where we support and connect with moms of athletes while sharing helpful advice from each other and some guest experts along the way. This is Tara.
And I'm Destiny. Thank you for joining us as we highlight you incredible moms.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sports Mom Rapport. Today we have the honor of speaking with Althea Wilson, an extraordinary supermom who has always prioritized her daughter's needs, taking on jobs that allowed her children to pursue their athletic and academic passions. Althea is the proud mother of three incredible athletes: Gabby, who has just completed her 5th year on the University of Michigan gymnastics team, Alexis, who is currently shining on Michigan State's track team, and Val, her oldest, who excelled in competitive cheer. Both Althea and her husband are former athletes themselves. They show unwavering support and a focus on core values that have built a strong foundation of love and success. Please welcome our guest, Althea. Althea, it is so awesome to have you here. We want to hear a little bit about you. Will you introduce yourself and tell us about if athletics played a role in your childhood and introduce us to your family too?
Okay. So I'm Althea Karen Wilson with a K, named after my father, who was Kerwin. And I was born in Kingston, Jamaica, back in 1967. My mom left me in Jamaica, which a lot of Caribbean parents do, moms do anyway, when they immigrate, and then they send for you after. So I guess I was about 6 or 7. I was reunited with my mom in Canada. I'm a native Jamaican. I became a Canadian citizen and spent my formative years in Canada until I left for college. Yes, I would say that athletics played a huge part in my childhood. I ran track. That was the thing that I was good at and got attention for, and ultimately got a scholarship to attend college in the US, which was, as a Canadian, that was super exciting, right? Because everybody wants to go to the US of A. When I initially left high school, I went to the University of Texas. I was a Longhorn for really a semester of the outdoor season. And they switched my athletic scholarship to an academic scholarship, but they didn't tell me. Went back that summer and they told me that they were putting me on this academic scholarship. Okay, cool. But then I found out it was $2,000 difference. I was just like annoyed. I was like, why don't you tell me that? You know, my coach said, well, it'd be stupid for you to go home now that you're back here. Right. And what do you think I did?
Did you go home?
I did.
You went home.
I got on a bus. It took me like 3 days.
Wow.
From Texas?
From Texas to Toronto. Yeah. I didn't tell my mom. I just went home because I knew she would pay it. And I went home and and Texas wouldn't release me so anyone else could pick me up. And so I just kind of sat around. No one could talk to me, but I had a girlfriend, Marita Wiggins, who ran for Canada, who knew the coach at Florida, but he had moved to Illinois. Anyway, he wanted me on his team. And through conversations with her, I was able to get a scholarship with them and headed back to Illinois, where I got my degree in human development with a minor in bio. Graduated in 92. That same year, that summer, I was running for Canada at the World University Games, where I met my husband. I met Chuck. He was running at the World University Games. So he was running for the US and I was running for Canada. A funny story, about a week before we were in Sheffield, England competing, we were at a meet in Carbondale, Illinois. If you know anything about how these meets are set up, there's a track that you compete on, and there's an adjacent track or a field or somewhere that you can warm up. As I remember it, as I recall it, he and I were the only ones on this track, adjacent track, warming up. I'm jogging by, he's stretching, we say hello, and that's it. So fast forward, when I see him in Sheffield, England, he reminds me that was him in Carbondale on that track that day. And I said, I guess God gave us a second chance. Like, these clowns can't make the connection. Let's give another try to do this. And so I met Charles the summer of 90, 21, and we got married a year later. And we've been together for 30 years, 30 plus years. And we have 3 daughters. Gabby's the middle of the 3. Valerie's the oldest. And then there's Alexis. And Alexis is at Michigan State right now on their track team. And Valerie is in South Korea teaching English. And she's been there for going on 2 years.
Althea, that is so interesting. I've known you for a little while and never did I know all of these details. Very cool. And I did not realize that you were born in Jamaica.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that Chuck just expected you to be mesmerized by him, that you would just remember that it was just the 2 of you on the track. And he's like, you didn't remember me, but I noticed you. He wanted you to be completely taken by him. And you were like, I'm focused on my track.
Oh my goodness. On that trip, the World University Games, it was like one of these week-long events with multiple, like all the Olympic events on sports, different sports are happening. It was like that with college students. And I think you could have been out of college for like a year and still qualify to compete. So we're at this event. I knew a lot of the American kids because I was at school in Illinois and I was running against them, right? And I didn't know a lot of the Canadian kids because I had been in the States. Anyway, I spent a lot of my time with the American team and I would be around Chuck at the table. And I kept asking someone to go with me, like into town, because they had a village for us. And I wanted to go into Sheffield and no one wanted to go. And so one day I was going to the track to warm up and Chuck was on his way back from the track. So we were like passing each other. And he says, do you still want to go into town? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, I'll go with you. When you come back, come get me. And I was like, oh, bet. So I'm at the track, I do my workout and then I sit around, I'm chatting. It's a long time by the time we head back. The people I was with, one guy in particular, they were going to lunch. And I said, oh, I told Chuck I'd, come get him. And he was like, do you think he's still waiting for you? We've been to the track for like hours, And I was like, well, yeah, I know, but I told him I'd come get him. Sure enough, that boy was in that dorm room waiting for me.
I love that.
Yeah. So I think it was a 2-way thing there, even though I might not have remembered him, but I was definitely happy to have been acquainted to him at that meet.
It was destined and he was patiently waiting for you.
Yeah.
That's one of my most favorite things is hearing how couples meet and their story. Because it's just, everyone always smiles well, maybe not everyone. If they're happily married.
If they're still happily married, right?
I love that.
What a good story.
I love that. So it sounds like with both of you being such accomplished track athletes, what was your philosophy going into raising your girls and specifically how athletics was going to play a part in your family? Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about maybe some competitive spirit that they may have had with their parents both being athletes.
I don't know that we thought about athletics, but our girls were active. Whatever the sport of the season was, they were typically involved. They were just very active girls. We were active family. We were outside running around in the backyard playing baseball. Chuck would make balls out of foil balls. And they'd be running to the trees in the backyard were bases. So we were just always really active. And Gabby was very coordinated. She had like good balance and coordination. She started walking at 9 months, like walking, not cruising. Like she was running on the sidewalk at 10 months. People thought she was going to like face plant, riding bikes around the neighborhood. You just name it. Chuck and I were the type of parents that wherever our children were and whatever they were doing, we were in those stands or along the sidelines, just very supportive and excited to see them do whatever it is they were doing. Like I would call the stands or whatever that place of observing them from was like my happy place. You guys probably feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, it is your happy place when you're watching them do what they love.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it phrased in that way, but absolutely. Mm-hmm. Nothing makes you happier than watching your kids be happy.
Yeah, or just like be amazing. Just do their thing. Mm-hmm. Whatever that, when I used to coach gymnastics, I went into coaching gymnastics because at the time Gabrielle got into gymnastics, I had a hair braiding business at home. And a lady came to get her hair braided who was actually a coach at Michigan Academy. And Gabby was, walking on the arms of the couch, jumping off the fireplace, and she says, have you ever thought of putting her in gymnastics? No. She says, oh yeah, she's got really good balance, da da da. I was like, okay, I'll think about that. And so we put her into a rec program at the rec center. And from there, we decided, okay, she probably needs something a little bit more formal. And at some point they said, we want to put her in the tops, get her on this team track. I was braiding hair, but I was at home and I thought, well, I don't know if we can afford these lessons. And they said, well, if you work for us and do some of these kinder classes, she can get her tuition for free. That's how I ended up working for the Michigan Academy Gymnastics. And I taught their kinder classes. And then eventually I taught their developmental classes. Loved that so much because these little girls would come in there. You know how does look, how their legs are all wobbly and, it's like no muscle. They just look like they're about to collapse. And they would come into the class kind of presenting like that. And then after like a full session of classes, however long that was, they'd be so strong. They'd be just so aware of their bodies. Just watching that sort of development happen over time, I was just in awe how much more confident they felt and all of that. Seeing that sort of transformation also was a happy place for me and really wanted to support girls and their development in that way. So yeah, earlier on with my kiddos, anything that they wanted to do, we were always on board and willing to sacrifice whatever we needed to for them to have the opportunities. Was it divide and conquer?
Definitely.
It explains why Gabby's hair always looks so fantastic. She learned her braiding skills from you. I did not know that you became a coach. And what a beautiful way to get into that.
I did. I coached for a long time.
And to support her and walk alongside her as she was growing and developing. And then you were there helping these other young athletes. It's not surprising that you would notice the development piece that you mentioned. Because didn't you say you got your degree in human development?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you took note of that. And that was something that was really important to you because you were seeing that development in those young gymnasts. So that's really cool.
How rewarding it must have been.
Absolutely. I feel good about having that opportunity to meet these girls, to support these girls, and to enjoy watching them grow and develop while being in the space with Gabby too. And all my girls did gymnastics at one point because I was there all the time. They had to be there because I was there.
I love how you advocated for those kids too. Once Gabby went into the gym for the first time, did she ever turn back? Or was gymnastics the sport for her? And also tell us about Alexis and what drew her to her sport.
Once Gabby was in the gym, Gabby was in the gym. It was really a great outlet for her energy. She was just a busy girl and she's always been curious. So all the equipment and all the things that they were doing, it was right up her alley. Valerie, my oldest daughter, she literally said, I want to be in gymnastics too, so I can get some attention around here. So we signed her up. And Alexis, she's just part 3 of the package. So, we threw her into classes as well. And Valerie did gymnastics, and she's a beautiful gymnast. She's, unlike Gabby's, more power. Val was very graceful and it's a really pretty gymnast, but the gym wasn't a good fit. So she ended up going to competitive cheer. So she went to competitive cheer and the gym was an hour and 20 minutes away. We had to figure out how are we going to get her there, get Gabby where she needs to be and home and yada, yada, yada. But long story short, the gym was in the same parking center as Olympia, where Gabby would end up X amount of years later. She did that for a couple of years and then she didn't want to do it anymore, and she moved on to high school and did other things. And Alexis, with Val going an hour and 20 minutes away, and I had to be with her, and then Chuck took care of Gabby, Alexis had to do one or the other. She couldn't do her own thing. There wasn't another person to get her there. So I made the executive decision that she was going to also do cheer. And then when something happened with the scheduling, I think Gabby moved to Westland, and that just put a whole nother monkey wrench in getting people where they need to be. But we told Alexis that she could do any sports she wanted to, in school. Sounds awful when I'm saying it. But yeah, so that's kind of what it was. She really couldn't do anything that required her to be transported. And so she did every sport in school. She played basketball. She was great at it. She played volleyball. She was great at it. She ran track. And then she found that she liked track. And that's really how she ended up in track. With Charles and I both running, we were excited. We're like, oh, finally, we get a runner.
Makes sense that she had some running legs there.
So that's how she ended up in her sport.
It's an interesting take on things where really there's just nobody that can take you anywhere. So you just get to pick something from what's available at the school. And she tried everything. So
yeah, she did.
That's excellent.
I can relate to that too, because I have the 3 girls as well. And it does change over time because you have the oldest and you just have the one and then another's added and then another. And it does make it really hard. I think the only other alternative oftentimes is just for the 3rd child to just not be doing anything. So I love that you said, you know what, we want you to be active. We want you to do something, get involved in the school, do other sports. And probably she had a completely different experience than the other 2 because she was a multi-sport athlete. And she was more involved maybe in the school. And so she got a different, I wouldn't guilt yourself about that at all. I just think her experience ended up probably making her, you know, be involved in the school in a different way than maybe the other 2 were able to. So,
yeah, I definitely see pros and cons, but I don't think there's any denying that the intentionality that we put into Gabby's gymnastics and how our family sort of moved around that is obvious, and the payoff is obvious, you know?
I think Lexi is fantastic and she's thriving in what she's doing. Hey, I was a 3rd child. I didn't get to do any classes either. So I get it. Like there's only so many of you and so many places you can be at once.
Yeah. The flip side of that is now that Val's been gone, Gabby's been gone, Alexis has had a good chunk of time where she's been our center. She got the back end of it, I guess.
You get to be the only child when you're older. That's all.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you share with us a little bit how your family navigated the recruitment process for college and just how has it been for your girls? And obviously they're also attending rival colleges with University of Michigan and Michigan State. So share with us a little bit about that.
The whole rival business, that's not anything that's in our house. We support each other. I'll put a period on that. The recruitment process, so very different. Gabby was recruited in the 9th grade when she wasn't even thinking about college. At the time, it felt like there was an urgency for her to make a decision. I wouldn't say she was ready to make it. She was just getting her legs as a level 10 gymnast and seeing some success. She was just beginning to get that. And I don't know that she wanted to think about that or was ready to think about that. So that was just a very early process. With Alexis got recruited very late. And she got recruited by Georgia State, actually, before going to Michigan State. It was so late, she felt like she had to make a decision and chose Georgia State because Valerie, her older sister, had gone to school in Georgia at Spelman. So we'd been there and enjoyed being there because Val was there. But now Val was gone. Val was in South Korea. And so when we took her down to Georgia State, she may have been there a week. And she called and said she wanted to come home. Full ride. I kind of knew when we left Georgia State that she wasn't ready for us to leave. And so when she called, I didn't ask her to stick it out a month or anything like that. I was like, okay, we'll come and get you. And we got her and she was back home. Yeah. And so she stayed home that next semester and then started Michigan State that January. And she's good. She likes being close to home. You know, she drives home and spends time with her dad. It's just a benefit for her.
It's beautiful that you listened to her and didn't make her stick it out when she knew right away that it just wasn't a good fit for her. You really don't know till you actually get in the situation.
Yeah.
It explains, I know that she was home for a little while and that before going back the next semester at Michigan State, but I didn't realize that that was the backstory, that she had gone where they gave her a scholarship and it just didn't work out. Got to pivot.
You do.
A lot of athletes set goals of continuing their career into college or even the Olympics. What characteristics do you feel that you helped instill in your daughters that launched their collegiate athletic careers?
I think sticking to whatever it is you committed to, sticking to it and working hard. Whenever they're finished with a thing, it has to be like on their terms. Val, like I said, it wasn't a good fit for gymnastics. There were times where she wanted to leave. And, I was like, you don't let people push you out. You don't leave because of people. You leave because you decide, I don't want to do this anymore on your terms. So I think those are kind of things, believing in yourself, working really hard, and sticking to the commitment that you've made. If I can remember correctly. So Chuck made these door plaques for the girls. On Val's door, it was Valerie, the mastermind. And it was Gabby, the genius. And it was Alexis was brilliant. We always had adjectives that we wanted to be descriptive of how we saw them. Gabby, I don't know if you've ever heard anyone refer to us Gabby 5. Gabby was 1. The genius was 2. The gymnast was 3. Godly was 4. And then she was a girl. We always did things like that to give them an idea, a reference of who they are, who they could be, when maybe other parts of their lives were giving them different messages.
I like that. I did know that that was Gabby's Instagram handle. Now we know where that came from.
Now you know where it came from.
And I love the personal affirmations, like instilling in them from outside and setting them up for success. I love the plaques Chuck made for them on their doors, and they're always seeing that positivity and believing that anything is possible.
Anything's possible.
It makes me think too about how difficult college athletics are and can be, especially the mental side of it. Like there are going to be so many people trying to knock you down, and not even people knock you down, but physically it's hard. You keep such a busy schedule. So those affirmations and telling them who you see them to be so that they can have that in their mind at the forefront and not some of the other noise that can come in and be a distraction. That's really special. Well, now let's talk about you a little bit more. So I was wanting to hear a little bit about, because you've mentioned doing hair braiding and your degree in human development and kind of your trajectory professionally, what advice do you have for other parents that may be navigating the challenges of raising successful athletes while also juggling their demanding careers and where that may take them?
I don't know how great a job I did at this, but I've always centered my children. And so I've always had flexibility in my work where I was able to do that. And not everyone has that. My hair braiding business was at home. And then when my oldest child went off to kindergarten, I got a job at the school teaching Spanish, like seriously, because she was taking Spanish lessons and this woman, the woman's husband got a job and left the country. And so I wanted her to continue to have Spanish. So I volunteered at her school to teach kindergartners Spanish. And they said, yeah, sure. I taught there for a couple of years, actually. And by the time I left, I was teaching like up to 5th grade. Isn't that the craziest thing ever? So once again, centering my children.
Reinventing yourself. Hey, you're like, you know what? You need Spanish. I got you.
I know.
I'm coaching gymnastics.
She's a woman of many, many talents and adjustments.
I love it because you are centering your children and you're saying, you know what? I birthed you. You're my priority. I'm going to do what I need to do to be there for you in different ways.
Yes.
You're stepping up to the plate. If this isn't available for you, well, watch me. I'm going to make it happen. And now they know if something isn't going the way they want it to go, then they can step in and take care of it. What a great example you have led for your kids.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so. So I taught Spanish. So I was in the school doing that until Alexis started school there. Backstory, how I got into the work that I'm doing now. When Val was 2 and Gabby was like 2 months, because they're like just about 2 years apart, I took them to a sort of mommy and me class. It was called First Steps.
Took my kids to First Steps.
Did you?
Yeah, yes. I loved it.
Loved it. And so the facilitator, her title was, she was a home visitor at the time. We became good friends. We're still friends today. All 3 girls attended the program over the course of the years. And when she was leaving the role, she said, Althea, you should apply for this job. I was like, oh, you think I should? She's like, yeah, absolutely. Long story short, I applied for the job. I got the job. That started the trajectory to where I am now. I was a parent educator in the program. Then I became a home visitor in the program. Then I became a coach of home visitors, Head Start program. And now I'm the family services coordinator. Currently, I'm on sabbatical from my role as their family services coordinator, and I'm in Washington, D.C. as a National Head Start Fellow with the Office of Head Start, growing my leadership skills because there's more things I want to do. All my success has really been closely tied to my children, my parenting. When I tell you, this is probably the biggest commitment, intentional commitment that I made in my life to people, these 3 people that I brought into the world. And with my oldest, I had like a aha moment. Val was 2. We're in the bedroom and I had a humidifier, the kinds with the tank you lift up. She was fooling around with it, picked it up and it spilled. And at the time, her name was Dominique, which is a whole nother story. I was like, Dominique, even I heard myself. It was louder than I intended. It was harsher than I intended. I was like, in that moment, I heard my neighbor through my baby monitor. I heard her having a conversation in her house. And I was like, oh, wow, I can hear Amy's conversation. And then I thought, can she hear me? Is this like a 2-way thing? And in that moment, I felt like I heard God say to me, you're worried about your neighbor. I not only hear everything you say, I see everything you do. And in that moment, I decided that I was going to interact with my children as if I lived in a glass house and everyone could see me all the time. And that really was a huge shift in how I would have parented my children had I not had that moment. When I went into parenting, I was afraid. I wanted to be a good parent, what I thought a good parent was. And a personal growing I did was through my interactions with my children and learning from my children, with my children, and having opportunities evolve because of the things I was doing with my kids.
That's so reflective and a beautiful thing about parenting too, right? Because we grow each child that we have, we're learning alongside how we're going to parent them. And every child has different personalities. So then we have to adjust and adapt. And that is a beautiful thing about parenting and motherhood, is that you're able to just reflect and see what you're doing and prioritize them. And I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and you turned the time that you spent into supporting the people that you love. The careers that you have had have been driven by the loves of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that you are part of Head Start, because when we moved to Ann Arbor, I got my oldest involved in that. And then when my next one came, we did that too. And that was such a beautiful program. I absolutely loved it. So wonderful to know that you are such a strong leader in that regard and training now to become even stronger.
Yes, I love Head Start. I love what it stands for. And I love working with families, connecting with them in a way to let them know that if you have nothing at all, you have kindness, you have sensitivity, you have respect that you can extend to your children. That's one of the things I love about the work that I do, connecting with parents who are stressed, overwhelmed, who have low resources, having time just to carve out of their day to stop and show their kiddos that I see you, you matter, I love you, I'm glad you're here, and all of that.
What a special difference you're making.
Can I tell you one more story? Early on when I was in that program, before we had Val, I was pregnant and we had a son, but he died. And so his name was Jeremiah. When I got pregnant with Val, some of the same issues that I had with him were presenting with her. So we thought we were going to lose her as well. And she's here and she's fine. We're going along. And unbeknownst to me, I still wanted Jeremiah. I was raising her sort of as another child and not seeing her for who she was. And it was this home visitor who beautifully, so gently made me aware of that. It was almost like I wanted Valerie to be someone she was never, ever going to be. I feel like had I not had that intervention, I call it intervention at that time, I could have potentially like really impacted her identity, her self-confidence, all of those things that are so important for her to move through this world as a confident Black woman. And I'm just so grateful that my experience in that program woke me up to that as early as it did.
I'm so happy you shared that. One, I'm so thankful for Renee gently nudging you toward that realization. And then I'm hearing that you were able to let go of whatever that maybe guilt or sadness that was weighing you down so that you could fully focus on Valerie and then Gabby and then Alexis. Thank you.
Total chills listening to that story, and beautiful the impact that it made on you so early on so that you could really focus on each of your next children as well and provide for them the attention and the needs that they deserved and that you wanted to be able to give to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit. That was really touching. I want to switch gears to your husband, Chuck, because he has been a tremendous leader of the Michigan gymnastics team, his vocal cheerleading skills. When he leads our cheering section, it's incredible. And he doesn't settle for anything but the best. If it's not loud enough, he's like, nope, we're starting over. So how would you describe that role that your husband plays in supporting your daughter's athletic careers?
This is hilarious because when Gabby especially was in JO, he would pace. You know, he wouldn't sit in the stands and watch her. He'd be off somewhere and then he'd come back once the score was up. Totally different person. So when she got to college and had a team, because when she was in JO, it was often just her. When she had a team, I think for him, it just took the load off because it just really changed how he showed up. And he could sit there and cheer and enjoy the camaraderie of other parents. So a lot of times I'm just cracking up, sinking down in my seat like, oh, Lord, here he goes.
That's my husband. That guy, that's my husband.
Yeah.
So he redirected his energy. He just redirected it. It's not pacing. He's bringing it. He is bringing it, and he's inspiring the whole crowd and all the other parents and families to cheer really on these girls. It's wonderful.
Someone told him, I don't remember who, the cheering helped the girls. I think it may have been a alum gymnast who said, when you're cheering, they hear it. It really motivates them. And so that's all he needed. I think that's probably what motivates a lot of his cheering and his carrying on.
Speaking of all the cheering, I know that Gabby has earned numerous awards in her time at Michigan Gymnastics, especially just recently this week, receiving the Medal of Honor at the University of Michigan. I can only imagine as a parent how that feels. Like you said, your happy places when you're watching your kids do what they love. Can you share with us maybe some of your proudest moments with any of your athletes?
Even when my children were growing up, all those ceremonies where they did their grades, you know, and they got their little certificates. I'm telling you, you could give my kid a little piece of paper with a little check on. I was like, yes, you know, thoroughly enjoyed all those opportunities where we sat and they got their awards. Any athletic event that they were participating in was a proud moment. Anytime other parents or other people would come up to us and say, oh, your daughter is great. And not just at the sport, and they'll share a story of some interaction that they had with their child and how it meant, whatever it meant, very proud moments. And we've had like tons of those moments with Gabby because she's had a lot of success in her gymnastics. Do you guys remember everyone was supporting Haiti and Gabby had $300 that she had saved up? And she gave her $300 to Haitian Relief. That was a proud moment for me. Lexi has a passion for God. I feel pride in that. Alexis has been in college where you're free to do whatever you want to do. And she has decided, like, I'm not going to do what I don't want to do. And that makes me very proud as well. And Valerie, I mean, I've been here in Washington for 6 months, and the first 3.5, I was missing people so bad. I was like, oh, Lord, help me. I just want my family, I want my people. And she's across the world. I'm just proud that she's able to step out in the world like that. And I feel we did something right that makes her capable and able to take care of herself. So yeah, so many proud moments, big and small.
Definitely fills your heart with all those, not just celebrating the wins, which are super exciting and of course very proud moments, but also being just so proud of who they are and their character.
Yeah. Also, I love that my girls are modest. My girls, they're beautiful girls, but they have self-respect and they're modest. And I appreciate that.
Their humility definitely shines through when around them. They're very humble and modest, I can tell.
I'm thinking the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, Miss Althea.
I've grown into the person I am today. A lot of the work that I do and the learning that I've had through my work has shifted my thinking and given me greater understanding. But those early years being separated from my mom were very impactful. Being reunited with my mom, who I wasn't particularly attached to, and my mom didn't totally understand the need for that, also impacted me. So Alexis, who's a psych major, she's always telling me, you need therapy. She's like, you need to read this book. No, seriously. So thank you for saying that. But a lot of that has happened in the later years of my life. And as I said, through raising my daughters and seeing them like I would see you, either of you. My signature line for my email, think about someone you respect greatly and render that to a child, your child, a child, because we often don't respect children because we can get away with it.
Interesting. And our children really do teach us things. I mean, her
Absolutely.
telling you to read this or sending you some helpful tips. I love it when I get stuff from my kids like that. Always working on self-improvement. We haven't talked a lot about having setbacks, and I don't know how many setbacks your children may have had, but I'm sure that they have had a few, as we all do. And when there are times that when big goals don't come to fruition, what advice do you have in helping your children handle setbacks?
I don't know that I've always actually done a good job of that because I always want to pacify. I don't always want to experience them experiencing the loss, the pain, the disappointment. A lot of times there's nothing I can say to change it. There's nothing I can say to diminish the feelings that are coming along with that. So I'm just there. I'm just there and they know that I'm there. And sometimes that's all I can do is say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that didn't work out, or I'm sorry your feelings are hurt, or that's it.
That's enough. Listening and being there for them. We can't really make things right. So I love that you understand that and you're just there to listen. And
yeah. Now, sometimes depending on what it is, we can reflect. Okay, so like what happened there and what can we do differently? Yeah. So sometimes that can happen when the time is right for that to happen. But in the moment, it's just being there and listening. And nothing is final. And we can get up and try it again. We're definitely a get up and try it again family, for sure.
Something you said reminded me of a time when I actually miscarried our third pregnancy. I miscarried. And I remember people are, oh, what do you need? What can I do? Anything I can do to help? And then I had one friend who listened. And then she said, that sucks. She said, I'm so sorry you went through that. And that really sucks. And in that moment, I was like, I needed that. I didn't want to put on a happy face. Nothing was going to change it at the time. I just needed someone to come alongside me and say, I'm sorry you're going through that. That's really hard and it sucks. And so there are times when our kids go through things that we wish we could protect them from, or maybe they set lofty goals and, it doesn't happen. And yes, there is a time for reflection to regroup and say, what can we do different the next time? But I love that you said you just listen. And sometimes You just tell them I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because that goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. And be honest with you, ladies, my children have had a lot of success in anything that they did. So we haven't had a lot of moments where actually we might have been spoiled. And so we've had a really wonderful experience in parenting that piece of it. It depends on what you decide qualifies success. I remember when we were level 4, some of the girls, they were kept at level 4. Parents were just disgruntled. They really wanted their kid to go level 5. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, if my kid's not ready to go level 5, I don't want him to go level 5. But I also understood that they were looking at it as my child's not good enough. Their idea of what was success was that their child would matriculate to level 5. So I guess for us, success was them just being out there and being able to do whatever it is they were doing.
I like how you point out that it's your viewpoint and it's the attitude that you face things with.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you have the positivity and look towards the success that you are having and focusing on the success, really, those aren't setbacks. They're just learning opportunities.
Yeah. You mentioned how Gabby has such a big heart and likes to give back to others. And I'm curious how Gabby has utilized the platform that she has built surrounding her success. How has she utilized that platform to bring awareness to diversity, motivating others? Can you share with us some more about that and how your family supports her in that?
Well, she has her 1 Minute Mondays. I want to speak for her, but I think initially that was an outlet for her, but it really became a platform to encourage other gymnasts. Her topics are very relevant to being a student, being an athlete, being a gymnast, and all the emotional and mental aspects that are involved in that. And then as far as her advocacy efforts, I know that when she initially arrived at Michigan, she had her cohort, but I would say that the culture has shifted. I think she spoke up about the culture that was part of the shift. I think in some respects, she was a change agent in that happening. And because of her approach, I would say, it opened doors for them to allow her to do that series about race and racism, and really brought in her other teammates of color to share about their experiences and really highlighted alums of color. It was just a really great opportunity and experience for her to advocate for something that she really believed in that was impacting her. I think a lot of her teammates maybe weren't aware of microaggressions. One of the stories she'll tell is creating a performance of some sort, and there was a rap, and they're like, well, Gabby, you do the rap. And she's like, why do I get to do the rap? And so it's just like a innocent, I suppose, expectation that may have been linked to race. And so these are just things that Gabby was able to lift up, just make her teammates aware of how things might be perceived. I think that was a great opportunity for her. So I think Gabby uses her platform to advocate. I think that's part of why she went into public policy. She's really interested in creating educational policies where all children are exposed to education that is culturally relevant, culturally responsive, and of interest. Sometimes if it's not salient or relevant to you, you're just not interested. It can be not pleasurable. It's just harder to grasp concepts and learn. And so this is something that she wants to change curriculum and what's put out there, so kids feel like they're learning about themselves, learning about things that are culturally responsive and relevant. I'm proud of that too. It's another proud moment.
Absolutely. It's special. I mean, because she, like you, has seen a need and she witnessed that in you. She's utilizing her voice in a way that is going to help so many other people.
Gabby and Lexi and Val too, I think it's generational, where a lot of my advocacy and focus has been on race. They're able to take in other social identities that are oppressed and see them all. And I think that's something that I've had to shift my awareness to, like intentionally shift my awareness to, because if it's not salient to me, I'm not paying attention to it. For years, I thought if someone wasn't particularly interested in race relations or anti-racism practices, then they were opposed to it. And that wasn't the case, because then someone could say, well, if you're not interested in LGBTQ AI2+, then you're against it. And no, I just wasn't paying attention because it wasn't salient to me. So that was really eye-opening for me too. So something I appreciate too, my girls really bringing to my attention. There's more out there. It's race and all these other issues that other people are facing that I don't have to think about.
They've been a good example for you.
Yeah.
You've been a good example for them. You and Chuck have shown them how to advocate for themselves. And it's really beautiful seeing those 1 Minute Mondays. I always get a smile on my face and learn a little something from Gabby when she puts those out there. They're really poignant, not just to athletes, but just life in general. And you can tell that she's put so much thought and preparation into bringing it into that 1 minute. It's perfect because nobody wants to sit there for a long time. It's just a quick little lesson. She talks fast, gets it out there, and really
makes a point,
makes an impact. It's really beautiful. Wrapping up here, what are your hopes and aspirations for all three of your daughters in their athletic and life pursuits?
Well, my only athlete left is Lexi. I want Lexi to run to the best of her abilities. I mean, and I don't know what that is, but I just want her to do the best that she's able to do and be happy with that. This post-collegiate transition, now it's life. What's next? And there's also a lot of expectation. People say, well, what's next? What are they doing next? And my short answer is, I don't know. They're going to get a job like we got jobs, when we got out of college. I just hope that they're doing things that they enjoy. I just learned about this concept of ikigai. It's a Japanese principle where you're doing what you like, you're good at it, and you're getting compensated for it. And it somehow helps others. And that's what I want for them. I want them to have an ikigai experience where they're doing things that they really enjoy. They're doing it well. It's helping other people, and someone finds value in it and will pay them to do it, whatever that is. And we're here to support them until they're on solid footing. Yeah.
Thank you for introducing us to that ikigai.
Yeah, I like that. Because that's what everyone wants, right? Is to be happy in what they're doing, to make a difference, to be compensated for it, right? Because you're spending time and effort, and
you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta live.
Everybody wants that. Well, we'll be rooting for Val over in South Korea and Gabby in her next endeavor, and still continue to cheer Alexis on at Michigan State. So
thank you, ladies.
Totally. It's been amazing hearing all these stories from you. Thank you for sharing and opening up about you and your family.
This has been great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I talk about my kids and my family all day. That's all of us. Thank you for an opportunity. I know, right?
I love it. Althea, thank you so much for your time. I've just enjoyed getting to know you even better. And we just appreciate all that you do. And good luck with your fellowship. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Love watching all of your children and you and your husband making such incredible impacts, making this world a better place. So thankful to know you, and so thankful for you sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure.
We're so glad you've joined us today. Thank you for listening. Upcoming episodes and show info can all be found at sportsmomrapport.com. If you've enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. We'd love to hear from you, so please reach out to us with any comments, or if you or someone you know would like to share their story and connect with us.